It's time for a G-Sport Global podcast, and I'm in Pakistan for the HBL Pakistan Super League, and I've met the most incredible human being. She happens to be a former Pakistan cricketer, but she's also a rising woman in cricket broadcasting. I'm talking about Urooj Mumtaz Khan, who's actually sitting on my bed here as we drink a cup of chai. Welcome to G-Sport.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure meeting you, first of all, and doing this podcast. It's going to be lovely.
I think it's so important for us to share our stories. I think previously I was always nervous to talk about myself and my life. And the more I started being interviewed, I realized that someone could be listening and you could be changing their lives. So that is why I'm chatting to you, because I think you're a game changer in everything you've done. But I just quickly went over to Google and I said, let me go and have another look. And do you know what I picked up? This year is 10 years since you retired from international cricket. Is that not a milestone or what?
Yeah, that is true. And women's cricket or playing cricket for Pakistan is something very, very close to my heart. And it's difficult watching from the sidelines. I do remember the last game I played. It was in West Indies. The 2010 T20 World Cup. Had a good game at the end there. But yeah, it's been a fantastic career. And you have to give it to what Pakistan gave me. I am here because of Pakistan cricket, so it's absolutely brilliant.
How did it all start for you? Because taking up cricket as a young girl is never easy wherever you are in the world.
Well, 1992 was a year where I think most of us started eating, dreaming, sleeping cricket. I was 7 years old and I watched Imran Khan lift that trophy. 1992, when we won the World Cup, I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was sitting in my uncle's room wearing a green Pakistan shirt. I used to play cricket again with my dad and my uncle in my backyard, even on the streets. And then, but it was that turning point when I was like, we're all going to end up becoming good students, right? But cricket, it was just so much close to my heart, and that was the turning moment. And that was it basically.
What was the reaction from your family? Because interesting, you mentioned 1992. That was the year I decided that I wanted to become the first woman commentator for South Africa. And my mum said, what is wrong with you? It's never going to happen because there isn't a woman, there isn't an Indian woman associated with cricket. How did your family react?
Well, I spoke to my mum and dad, and even before speaking to them, it was almost like they were very encouraging of all three of us siblings playing sports. We were privileged enough to be members of the Karachi Gymkhana Club, where there were obviously boys teams, right? So there was an under-9 boys cricket team and an under-13, under-15. And I just told my dad, I said, I really want to play cricket, but there's nowhere where I can play cricket. So he just took me along to Karachi Gymkhana. And believe you me, the first thing that the boys under-19 team management at Karachi Gymkhana said that, a girl can't play cricket. It's a boys team. And for me, that was a turning point, because then to become a permanent member of that team, I had to be good, maybe at least, about 9 or 10 of them. You had to be better than most of the boys to make a place for yourself in that team. And for me, that was the turning moment, because it was almost like having to prove something, but still have a feeling of belonging there. And it turns out I became the under-17 boys team captain at that very same club.
Unbelievable. And that would have changed perceptions at that time, didn't it?
Absolutely, it did. I think there was a lot of women involved in breaking the barrier for women into sport, and especially cricket, because when you talk about cricket and football in particular, you by default think of them as a boys' game. Especially in our part of the world, in schools, you associate badminton and a little bit of throw ball with women, indoor sports mostly as well. So it was very important to lay the groundwork where it was all right for a girl to have a dream to pick up any sport for that matter. And we all know the Women's World Cup, the first ever Women's Cricket World Cup was a Women's World Cup 2 years before the Men's World Cup. So, but then again, it's tough because for me it was very easy because I had a club to go and play cricket where the cricketing facilities were present. But more importantly, my family was very supportive, and to this day they are.
What was your debut for Pakistan like?
2004 against the West Indies. and I debuted in a test match. I've played one test match. Pakistan has played a total of 3 test matches. And it was a test match where Kiran Baloch scored that massive 242 not-out innings. We played at the National Stadium in Karachi. Didn't really go well with the bat because I was padded up for 2 days and I was bowled out for a duck. So not the best, but picked up a couple of wickets and it was absolutely fantastic. But just the fact that we were playing at the National Stadium in Karachi, a test match for Pakistan, donning that green blazer and walking out on the field is just something that I can never put into words. And it was, for me, every match that I played for Pakistan there on in had the same emotional feeling. And till today, when the national anthem goes up, there's something that happens in my body which is just unexplainable.
I know, I get you, because you achieved your dream, but when you go back in your career and you say, there was a moment that stands out, and every time I think about that moment, that stands out as the highlight. What is that moment?
Very close to my heart, the 2009 World Cup. I was captaining the Pakistan side in Australia, the 50-over World Cup. And it was the first ever World Cup that Pakistan was going to play after the ICC and the IWCC had merged. So all cricket had come under one roof. So it was the first 50-over World Cup for the ICC for women. And we were on the flight to Australia. And as we land there, we hear the news of the unfortunate incident in Pakistan on the Sri Lankan team. And for me, and 8 captains up on stage, and in the opening ceremony, the first question I get asked was regarding that. And to this day, I don't really know what I said, but whatever I said was splashed all over Australian newspaper. And the fact that, and I think one of the headlines was people like Urooj Mumtaz Khan live in Pakistan, and not every Pakistani is associated with what happened back then. It was one unfortunate incident. But following that, 2009, we were ranked 8th in that World Cup. 8 teams were participating, and we were handed over our tickets for our return flights, expecting that obviously 7 and 8 will go out and will not make it to the Super 6 stage. And Pakistan being Pakistan, we were bowled out for very, very cheaply in the first game against India. And for us, our World Cup journey was almost done. To the fact that my parents had actually flown in to watch that match. And as they got to the ground and they asked the trainer, I said, why aren't you guys playing? And my trainer, with a very glum face, turned around and said, well, the match is over. So I went back to the dressing room and I showed those tickets to my teammates. And I said, well, this is our chance to make history. We got to prove, not the world, but we got to prove to ourselves that we belong here. So we got to win the next one, and we got to change these flights, and we got to stick around for this World Cup, because this does not happen every day. And we'd played Sri Lanka 17 times prior to that, various teams before us as well. We never won a match, and we won that next match against Sri Lanka, and we went through the Super 6 stage of the World Cup, got our tickets changed. Fantastic.
Oh my word. Now that is an incredible moment, and I think it will have to stand out, because it would have been a turning point in terms of how Pakistan women's cricket viewed itself.
Yeah, it was almost like we were written off, and I don't blame people who said that, because we were almost, just for us being there was an opportunity. For us just getting through to the qualifiers and qualifying for the World Cup, and for us it was a stage where we could learn from the best, see what the bigger teams are made of, see what different systems work, and then come and apply back at home. But there was something inside, because at that point cricket in Pakistan was still very, very amateur. Most of us were actually putting in money rather than the other way around. So for us it was just proving to ourselves that we belong here, and then it was just playing for Pakistan, get your best cricket in. So again, I mean, like I'm sort of struggling for words right now, because it was such this feeling that you couldn't describe, and that and I even remember there was about maybe 25-30 people in the crowd in that Pakistan Sri Lanka match, but our team, we took flags and we went around the ground, victory laps, to an entirely empty stadium. But those 50 odd people in the crowd and us, we probably sang our national anthem, and I think there were a few tears running around, and it was just absolutely brilliant. And that match, to this day, I think changed the face of Pakistan women's cricket in order for people to realize it's a serious sport for us.
If you just tuned in, we're chatting to Urooj Mumtaz Khan, a former Pakistan women's cricketer, but also, as I found out when I arrived in Pakistan, a dentist. Talk about being an all-rounder. From cricket to dentistry, how did that come about?
Well, both my parents are dentists, so dentistry almost naturally fell in for me. And a lot of people ask, were you forced into dentistry? Because doctors' kids become doctors, and so on and so forth. But for me, I would always hitch a ride back from school to my parents' practice and sort of hang over my dad's shoulder to see what he was doing. And just the smile on people's faces when that damn toothache is gone is brilliant. So for me, I always wanted to do that, but it was very difficult because, again, fighting the barrier of a female playing sport, and then B, you missing out on classes, like a lot of classes that you're missing out on. Your professors weren't really happy because they didn't really at that point care about Pakistan women's cricket. Like, really? Like, who cares, sort of a thing.
It wasn't a viable career opportunity anyway.
Agreed. And the fact that at that point it was just like people just getting to the fact that there is a Pakistan women's team playing at the national level was unheard of. But credit goes to my university professor, because there was a point where I was leading Pakistan into the Asia Cup. And it just happened that my second year dental school final exams were exact clash with the Asia Cup. So I went to my parents and I said, like, what do we do now, right? So they're like, we're absolutely all right with you playing, but really, I mean, it's still a growing sport. Yes, you are the skipper of the side, but you will miss your exams, you'll be a year behind, and this, that, and the other. So I said, fine, let me just go and talk to my professor. And Dr. Bakar Askari, worth a mention, he turned around and said that if your parents don't let you go, I won't let you sit for the exams.
Wow. And
that, to me, was a turning point in so many ways, because he almost believed in me more than anyone else. And he said, you don't get to lead Pakistan in anything all the time. You are a select 15 from this, and you're the one setting the boundaries, you and your team, of course. And he rescheduled the exams. So I mean, he said the exams are ours. You can give them as your first attempt in the next go. It doesn't make you less of a dentist. But will the cricket ever come back? And my parents and I, to this day, it was unbelievable. Coming from the culture that we're bound by, certain boundaries, education goes a long way in terms of, at least on the flip side, if you're comparing it with female sport, you'd almost be like, okay, fine, play till you want to play, but get back into serious stuff. But I really feel there's a lot of women who've paved the path for upcoming youngsters in the world of sport.
Absolutely. This one question I'm going to ask you, it irritates women when you ask this question, because they ask, do you ask men about balancing parenting and career? But it's actually a question that is very relevant to us, because we are the mums, we are the wives, we are the ones that take care of family. How do you balance everything?
You're absolutely right. It's worth the question, because women are just wired separately. We're wired differently. We've got certain responsibilities that we just have, because like you said, we are the wives, we are the mums, we are the sisters, we are the daughters, and men are men, they are the husbands. So they've got different roles. And whether you like it or not, a child wants his mum, right? And a dad cannot fulfill that. So it's very, very difficult, because you need to almost, being a professional, you need to, I always believe, because dentistry and cricket taught me that you have to give it 100%, because you can't do half and half and be half in both, right? So you rather pick one and give it your all. So you have to get it right. It's a very, very difficult balance, because you need to give enough time, and family comes first, right? You have to give it enough time. And because there are moments where I really miss my little one, and she sticks to me like glue when I go back home. But it's having that right support system, and I feel I'm really blessed, because I have a grandparent who's my little one's great grandmother.
Incredible.
90-year-old, and she takes care of her. So I think it's very important, and you'll probably agree with me, having that support system who not only understands what you're doing but respects it. That makes it that much more easier. So I think once you've got a system that connects with you on the level of your professionalism, it becomes that much more easier. But it's not easy. Let me get that across. You need to have your A game. You need to get your homework right. You need to be well versed in what you're doing, because competition's tough in no matter what you do.
And to reinvent yourself is so important, because you can't just keep going on one straight line to success. There's challenges, there's setbacks. What has been the biggest challenge you've had to deal with, that you've had to overcome to be where you are today?
Well, multiple things. I think firstly, in the field of cricket, back when I was playing, like I said, there was a lot of people who just didn't even know there was a Pakistan women's cricket team. You would be traveling back and forth in the aircraft with your blazer on, and people were like, oh, so what do you play? And like, yes, I play. What do you play? Cricket. Oh, for your school? No. Oh, for Karachi? No. For Pakistan has a women's team, national team. And so just, trying to tell people that yes, there's a bunch of us who are actually representing our country at the biggest level. Not only that, even infrastructure-wise, logistics-wise, just getting to the grounds. Under 15 boys were given privilege over the Pakistan women's team in terms of practice facilities. Flights, traveling via train, buses, putting your own money in just to get fruits during match days. So we've had to... There's a funny story, and I tell this to everyone. There's been days where we've actually told our trainer that we're washing clothes today. So that'll be our upper body gym session today.
I can't believe that.
So we've actually had to go through that, right? But again, it was important for someone to lay the foundation, right? And when passion's right up there, it doesn't matter if you're washing clothes. It doesn't matter if you're washing your green jersey yourself, because somebody has to lay the foundation for better things to come. And even now, where I'm in a different role in terms of cricket, and so it's just still fighting against the odds. There's still a lot of people who will almost take women's cricket as second fiddle to men's cricket. And for me, it's like, you gotta have the same respect. You have to value your women the same way as you would do for the men. And not just a sporting athlete. It has to begin at home.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opposition that comes along with that, because and you have to be vocal and you have to fight for what's right. So in terms of cricket in Pakistan, there's a lot of boundaries we still need to overcome, but we have to change the perception with, firstly, and I believe firmly, is valuing your own women. You need to make them feel like $1 million for other people to respect them.
And speaking of that, you have a role to play, being part of the selection committee for Pakistan women's cricket. You can now do what you've probably wanted others to do for you as a player, now sitting in a role where you can make a real difference.
Absolutely, and I think credit goes to the new management of the PCB. They've grabbed women's cricket by the scruff of the neck, and it was said very earlier on that women's cricket will be one of the fundamental pillars of the PCB moving forward. And it reflects very nicely in the upgrade of the central contracts, in for the first time ever introducing match fees at the domestic level in the PCB or in Pakistan women's cricket, catering to 45 players across the board at the domestic level rather than just the 10 or 12 or 17 contracted players that we have. Increasing daily allowances, flying them business class. All other teams fly business class, men fly business class, so why not the women, right? So I feel that when you've got a support system, and you rightly put it, I'm in a very important role right now, but again, it goes to show we're a first time ever 3 female selection committee for the female team. And Marina and Asmavia Iqbal with me, my 2 fellow, I've played with them, and along with me on the selection committee, almost shows, because we understand the game. We realize what the difficulties the players have, because we've started from where they haven't. We've seen the toughest of times. So it's very easy for us to relate, because the ground reality in women's cricket is far different to men's cricket. And I almost find there has to be a connect. And a lot of the players we can connect when they can relate to us. So it's almost like playing a elder sister figurehead along with somebody who is in an important position to get it right. So it's a very, very tough ask. It's a very big challenge, because you're in a very, very accountable and responsible position. And the gun's always firing, right? You're always taking a hit from somewhere. Someone's not happy. But I think if the intention's right, because it's not your team or my team, it's Pakistan women's cricket. So hopefully and again, you're not always going to get it right, but as long as the vision is correct and you're headed in the right direction, you'll eventually get there.
We're chatting to Urooj Mumtaz Khan. I'm in Pakistan for the HBL PSL Super League, and let me tell you, when I heard that there is a fellow woman in the commentary box alongside me, I was delighted to meet you. I was like, it's not often that you walk into a commentary box in international men's cricket and you find a woman next to you. I have to say that I've been in awe listening to your commentary, but more than that I see such a great future for you in the commentary box.
Well, Cass, seriously, coming from you, that's great because the minute, like you're saying, the minute I found out you were coming to Pakistan and I quickly Googled it, and your story of when you were 14 years old and you went up to your mom saying, I'll become the first female commentator of South Africa. And you've done it. You've literally rammed through the door and paved a path for a lot of people like myself who have someone to look up to and someone who's a female commentator. And I think, well, whatever we say is not enough because credit goes to you. And then again, I mean, we sort of reached out before you came here. And like you were saying, it was almost like a feeling of comfort. And then knowing that there is someone else who's paved the path for you and you have a chance of learning from her. And again, like you said, how often does it happen that there are 4 females, 2 presenters, Erin Holland, Zainab Abbas, yourself and me doing commentary for one of the biggest franchises in men's cricket, the Pakistan Super League?
I think hats off to the PCB, and I know that the MD of the PCB has had a big role to play in terms of inclusion and diversity. But in terms of commentary, what are your goals and aspirations? Because I've told you this and I've said it on a number of occasions. I see you rising, but there are many roles you play. How will you try to work your commentary dream?
Well, again, I think it's commentary is for me where I see myself eventually, and it's a couple of things. It's the knowledge of the game, having played the game at the highest level against the best of oppositions is something that I feel I'm very privileged in that sense to have that wealth of knowledge and background. But more importantly, how you deliver it is a whole separate game, right? And it's almost like not every good player becomes a good coach. So you need to, and I always believe that you're always learning. Even if you're the best at what you do, you're never complete. So what I do, when I found out I was doing the PSL, firstly, I mean, a shiver ran down my spine. It's like, oh my God, because the names that we have in this PSL are massive.
I mean, it could really make you shiver and shake, right?
And then Cass, I did my first ever with Danny Morrison and then Ramiz Raja.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
That must have been so nerve-wracking, but they're both incredible individuals who've been extremely supportive of us.
Absolutely. And then to start off with that level of energy and intensity, it almost threw the nerves out of the park. Yeah. Because you've started right up there. And it's important that you keep picking up and you keep learning. And I think, and people like you especially have paved the path for a lot of us to actually believe that it is possible, to believe that you can be a commentator. It doesn't have to be a male or a female commentator. And I think gone are those days where there has to be, oh, she's a female commentator. I think it has to be a cricket commentator.
Yeah.
And
it's all about credibility, and I often say that, gender aside, you got to be damn good at what you do to keep your place.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's very important because you only let yourself down if you haven't done your work right. So I think it's important because like any other profession, you still have to put in the hard work and you still have to strive to be the best. So it's a massive challenge because we've got some absolutely wonderful people out there who are right up there in the game of commentary, and there's so much, but then again, there's so much happening throughout the world. And the PSL, and like you mentioned, the PCB has been absolutely fantastic with allowing and valuing women to lead the way. And then there's a picture of us that you recently put up. It's almost become like the face of the PSL.
It's incredible. And I think a lot of people have been quite surprised saying, in Pakistan, you have women commentators. And I don't think the perception is just changing around young girls who want to commentate. I think it's changing around young girls who want to do things that most girls don't have the possibility to dream about doing.
Spot on, Cass, spot on. Absolutely true. Because you have to... It's not just cricket. It's not just commentary. It's about a little girl having a dream, which could be anything.
And she sees representation and she goes, I see her and I see me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a dream which is not far from reality anymore. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of us who have almost made that picture look real. And I think that for me is more important because being in that position where you can almost allow someone to dream is something which is a very humbling experience. So it's and I think in Pakistan more so, because there's a lot of boundaries which are much tighter compared to the Western world. And standing out for A, what is right, and B, equality, goes a long way.
Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Well, hopefully doing this again with you a couple of times at some big tournaments. And I think being right up there in the group of commentary would be great. And again, to me, even when I was playing cricket, it's about, yes, you got a job to do, but the friends, the connections, the values that you learn from each other, the respect that others show you, and vice versa, and just the connection that you make, which is a family outside family, is incredible. Just these past few days with you, and it almost feels like I've known you like for ages.
It has. It does feel like it's a relationship that has been going on forever. And like school friends.
Exactly. And we've hardly known each other, 10 days now. So for me, I think in anything that I do, I always believe you have to aim to be the best. You got to put in the hard work in no matter what you do, and you have to give it your 100%. And like you're saying, it's not always going to come off right, but in your heart, if you've done it right, most often than not, it will come out right.
What an awesome chat. Thank you for making time. And I'm so glad we have made time, because once we head to the stadium, it's all work, right?
Oh, it's manic. It's manic. There's a lot of pre and post that goes on behind the scenes, which probably reflects in the stories that we've just shared.
Yes.
And it's again, so many cultures, so many nationalities that have come together. And it's almost, it's beautiful, to say the least. It's been absolutely beautiful.
Zabardast. As you can see, my Urdu is getting even better. Thanks to Urooj Mumtaz Khan for chatting to us here. This is a G-Sport Global podcast in Pakistan. And thanks to the HBL Pakistan Super League 5 for bringing us all together.